Welcome to Straight from the Source with Haley Watts, and our guest today is the Executive Director for the Butte County Farm Bureau, Colleen Cecil. Hi, Colleen.
Good morning, Haley.
So, oh my gosh, our area, living here in Northern California, I learned very quickly how important agriculture is on pretty much everything that we do. And even people who don't think that agriculture matters to them, it touches their lives.
It touches everybody's lives, not just when you go to the grocery store either. We have this beautiful open landscape that exists around Butte County and all the neighboring counties. All of our cities we're really fortunate to have some kind of division. When you leave Chico, you before you get to Biggs, and then you leave Biggs before you get to Gridley. And all of those separations is all agriculture.
Right.
And so, it's a pretty important part of Butte County's economy.
It's so funny. So I'm originally from Southern California.
Okay.
So a lot of times when family members come to visit, they fly into Sacramento, and then the drive to Chico, they're like, gosh, Chico or like Orville are like these islands in the middle of nothing. And I'm like, it's not the middle of nothing.
No, it is not
it's an
nothing.
ocean, but it's an ocean of, food to keep us alive. What would you say the Butte County's agriculture is worth, like on a yearly basis?
So the Ag Department or the Ag Commissioner in Butte County does a crop report every year, and they said that the 2024 crop was worth like $800 million.
Oh my gosh.
So, and that's only the amount that the farmers are taking in from selling their crop.
Okay.
That doesn't take into consideration the money that's created when almonds have chocolate put on top of them, or rice is put into rice cakes,
Right.
Or walnuts are candied and placed on a salad.
Right.
Those all are different costs. So agriculture and food production is pretty important, and there's not a lot of places in the world that can do what we do.
Yeah.
So it's up to California. We feed not only the United States, but we feed many people in the world.
What's so special about this area? Like, why can we do what we do?
Soil,
Okay.
weather, and water.
Okay.
We have, these really hot summers for many people, but that's a really ideal growing time. We get spring in the springtime, as opposed to folks that live in the Midwest and they don't see their grass until the snow melts. That's not what we have here. We have what's determined as a Mediterranean climate, so it makes it ideal to grow food here. And then we have water. We have water from our reservoirs. We have water from rainfall that's collected in our reservoirs. And then we also have a really abundant groundwater system as well.
So let's talk a little bit. The first thing you said was soil, right? And that's been a hot topic lately. I think it's becoming like more common for people to hear about like regenerative agriculture and like soil health. And like I've heard things on podcasts from people who talk about stuff like they're knowledgeable, claiming that like at the grocery store, the apple that you buy, right, the nutritional value of that is so much less than it was like 50 years ago, and they are pointing to poor soil health in a lot of American farms. Is there truth to that?
I believe that soil health is 100% important, and farmers have always been very much concerned with their soil health. There are literally no nutritional differences in food that's produced conventionally or organically, or if it's even labeled regenerative. The nutritional differences do not exist.
Okay, so if there's like the energy there to make an apple, it's full of all the vitamins and whatever.
It is, absolutely.
Okay.
The apple's going to have all of the same nutrients.
Yeah.
The difference becomes potentially in how big or how small the apple is, or in how many apples produce on a tree, as opposed to a different tree that was farmed in a different capacity.
That's so interesting. I wonder where that got started from. I feel like a lot of people think that that's a fact.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
It is 100% marketing, and it is marketing, and its companies essentially trying to separate themselves from the other. The bottom line, consumers can go to the grocery store and know that the food that they're buying, especially if it was produced in California, was produced by and in the safest, most affordable way possible by farmers who care about their soil, they care about their livestock, they care about their land, and we're producing this safe and affordable food supply, not only for where we live here, but for the world too.
For most people, when you go to the grocery store, say just any given chain market in Chico, would you say that a majority of it comes from California, or do you have to kind of look at the sticker?
A lot of it does ingredients
Yeah.
come from California, right?
Ingredients, but not like in the produce section.
So the produce section depends on the type of year.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that we are very spoiled. I'll use the word
yeah.
spoiled.
I want broccoli and I want it
I
every
want it
day
now,
of the year.
and you can get it
Right.
because our grocery stores are looking for it for you from wherever they can get it from.
Yeah.
So depending on the time of year, it might not be the freshest.
Right.
It might not be the most flavorful.
Or most local.
Or most local for that matter. And everything is labeled.
Yeah.
That's one thing in
Yeah.
our grocery stores, everything is labeled. So if you're expecting to find a juicy, ripe peach in December, it's not from California.
Right.
It may be in your produce section, but it's come from a foreign country who has a similar climate to that of California now, right, in
right.
December. So it's probably coming from Central America, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you should eat seasonally if you want to get the freshest, especially if you want to get food that was sourced closer to where you live.
Yeah.
I think many people have a different definition of locally.
Right.
We live in California. We grow 400 different crops across the state of California. I believe something is local if I can drive in one day and go in and get it,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah.
doesn't have to be grown down the street for it to be local. That's local,
Right.
but I believe that peaches from Kingsburg are probably local. They're important to me because
Yeah.
I can find them in my local Costco. I can find them in my local grocery store.
Right.
So we're fortunate to live in the state of California where we do have such an expansive collection of food and vegetables year round. Now, strawberries, we have developed technology and science to be able to create those like 11 or maybe even 12 months out of the year
Right.
in greenhouses in
Okay,
California,
yeah.
right? So you can buy strawberries in December and they're going to likely be from California.
What do you think about like more greenhouses to enable it so we could have whatever the produce is, like know that it's grown to California standards year round rather than coming from wherever?
It sounds amazing, but people aren't going to be willing to pay for it.
It's
'cause
more expensive to do that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, because you're not going to be able.
You have like a PG&E bill for your
Yeah,
broccoli?
absolutely,
Yeah.
because you're going to have to keep it warm and toasty like it's summertime in
Yeah.
December, and that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
But the diversity that we have, appreciate the peaches in the summer and freeze them to make pies in the winter.
Yeah.
Just like, we are fortunate to have vegetables come from the central coast of California and have them year round.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be afraid to buy frozen or canned vegetables in the winter months. They are canned and frozen at their peak freshness.
Do you have some tips and tricks if I were to get, say, like frozen broccoli that was grown somewhere somewhat
Sure,
locally,
yeah.
but to like make it come out not all soggy? You know?
Well, it depends on how you like your broccoli,
Okay,
right? Some
yeah.
people like it with a little
little
less
mush.
crisp, right? I think you just have to eat also for the season, right?
Yeah.
A frozen broccoli or a frozen green bean or a frozen carrot is going to taste best probably like roasted with
Right.
some California olive oil
Okay.
and a little bit of salt.
Yeah.
That's probably how it's going to taste best
Yeah.
this time of year.
Yeah.
We just have to eat seasonally, right?
Right.
Appreciate those fresh broccoli, and we get broccoli a long time throughout the growing season as well because the climate on the Central Coast is what it is.
Yeah.
We also see a lot of produce coming from Arizona because they have more heat for a longer period of time than California does. So when they stop growing it on the Central Coast of California, then it starts coming in from Arizona.
Yeah.
Not too far from us, still U.S. grown, still supporting U.S. farmers.
Yeah.
So I think that we can take advantage of it. But in the wintertime, switch to winter vegetables
Right.
like squash and different lettuces
Yeah.
and don't be afraid of canned and frozen vegetables.
Right. And, I love a good grocery store, right? And
I do.
a lot of times, like, going to Winco is going to be cheaper than going to the farmer's
Sure.
market. But going to the farmer's market is a good way to figure out what's in season.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah, because not all of us have that information on hand.
Yes, and you can easily Google
Yeah,
that
that's
as
true.
well.
We
You
do
can go
have
to the
cell
internet.
phones.
Yes, you can look at all kinds of information. You very specifically could probably reach out to, like, if you called the University of California Cooperative Extension. We have an office in Butte County there in Oroville. They have a program called the Master Gardeners. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a gardener to be able, but they've got a lot of that information that they want to share with consumers so that they can maybe determine what they're going to plant in their garden or how they're going to buy and when they're going to buy what's in season, but they have all of that information. But I guarantee you could go online and you could search the times of the year when specific produce is seasonal for California, and make sure you say, I live in Northern California as opposed to Southern California, and there are different growing regions, and that's all available.
So I have another question about soil and dirt in general for the home gardeners.
Okay.
I thought about this when we moved into a new home after I got married, because I like growing, you know, zucchini and tomatoes and all those things. And so we made a little planter, and I just kind of was going to use the dirt that was the land. And then I started thinking, well, gosh, what if the last person who lived here used a ton of Roundup for years on this section or whatnot? I mean, is how that soil was treated in the past, could that affect what goes into my produce that I grow?
It's probably not going to impact what goes into your produce, but it'll impact potentially how your produce grows.
Okay.
But you can improve your soil health through planting plants that provide nitrogen naturally to the soil. That's going to help. So there's some different plants that you can put into the ground. Don't ask me what those are. But
there's like seed mixes, right?
There are, absolutely. There's seed mixes and different things that you can put that will improve your soil health. I think it's important for people, especially in this area, to realize that if the subdivision that you potentially are living in, how close is the agriculture to you right now? Because that subdivision may have been built on an orchard that was once an orchard is now a subdivision. We have a lot of houses in Butte County and Chico specifically that sit on some really amazing soil, and you could grow some beautiful tomatoes in your backyard with probably a little effort. You should take advantage of it and grow a garden in your backyard. Grow a tomato plant, grow zucchini plants. You know, grow some pumpkins in the fall. Make a pumpkin pie or whatever you want to do. But you know, it's a lot of fun to pick your own tomato. They definitely taste sweeter when you've grown them yourself.
Gosh, I love homegrown tomatoes.
Yes.
It's the only kind I'll eat.
Me too.
Okay, let's talk about the chemical dilemma and all the the scary things, right? Like something that I always worry about, of course, is pesticides, right? And listen, as somebody who I grow things in my backyard without pesticides, and there's bugs, the bugs get my food sometimes quicker than I can harvest it. And so I understand when you're trying to feed the masses the need for it. But I feel like there's a lot of distrust. Like we get the message, we hear from our state officials that, oh, well, everything is safe and regulated. But then we see people getting cancer for unknown reasons all the time. Everybody, it seems like it. And so we're looking at where to place the blame for that. And I think a lot of people have a lot of concerns about pesticides. What is your take on what's currently being used in our state?
Well, the stuff that is being used in our state, what we would refer to as crop inputs. That's how a farmer would refer to them, pesticides or herbicides. Herbicides will take care of weeds and pesticides will take care of pests. Those are the crop inputs that farmers are using. They are all very much regulated and tested. Farmers, in order to use them, have to have a prescription, basically, to think about if you're going to go to the pharmacy and get a prescription for an antibiotic, you've got to have visited with a doctor to do that. Farmers, they look to their pest control advisors. These are licensed and trained individuals who understand the different crop inputs and also understand the challenge that a farmer might be experiencing, and then make a recommendation for how to treat it. Now, there are rules and regulations on the back of the bottle for how much can be applied and used to treat whatever the issue might be. And farmers have to abide by those rules, and they're tested. They report for some of the chemicals. They report to the ag department when they're going to spray, and then the ag department goes and checks out on them. There's a lot of checks and balances for it. I think what's also important is people need to remember is these things aren't free. And so farmers have to purchase them, and anytime you purchase a crop input like that, that's a reduction in how much you're going to make on the other end. So farmers don't use more than they absolutely have to, because that's going to be an expense for them. So it's a balancing act. There's no doubt about it. I believe that there are, unfortunately, too many organizations, who I will not name, who are doing an in-service to people. They're not providing truthful information about the chemicals that are being used.
Like the one that does was it like the Dirty
Yes.
Dozen?
Yes.
Or what,
Okay.
like,
I'll mention it
yeah.
since you brought it. It's the
Okay.
Environmental Working Group.
Yeah.
They're a lobbying group. They're not a science organization.
What's their motivation?
Their job is to scare you into buying organic produce. That's
Okay.
it. But what they forget to tell you, number one, is that the information they're using is information that's come from our state of California, and that all of the residues that they're finding are below the limits that are acceptable and that were already set by our government, right? So that's number one. And number two, I think I just go back to my original thought, was that they're not a science group. Their job is a marketing group. They're a lobbying group.
Yeah.
They want you to buy organic, but organic uses pesticides too.
That's
They're
what
just
I've heard,
labeled.
that it's
factual. It is
So
factual.
what's the deal with that? How is that allowed? What kind of stuff are they using?
Synthetic pesticides.
Okay.
That's the difference. So
Isn't it all synthetic?
well, there's different levels of it for different crops,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's pesticides for organic crops,
Right.
and then there's pesticides for
Okay.
conventional crops.
So there's probably a big difference between organic labeled in the grocery store versus what a guy who has a little farm in Chico at the farmer's market, or do even the local
No.
organic farmers can still use those
They
synthetics?
can still absolutely use
Yeah.
them because they're still using a crop advisor, and they're still able to purchase them if they've been trained
Yeah.
and they're licensed. There's a lot of education and training that goes into being able to apply pesticides
Yeah.
to a crop that's going to be sold to the customer, right? Into those markets, right?
Right.
It's not like and this is my argument every time that the state of California says we're going to take all of these away from farmers because they're scaring people. Well, you're not educating people first and foremost, but you're also not taking it away from the consumers when they go to big box stores and buy their bottle of chemicals to go spray their garden in their backyard, or the weeds that are around their flower bed
Yeah.
or around their grass, right? You're not asked questions, or you're not taking a course on and being educated about the ingredients and how long it lasts, and what's the problem if it ends up in the drain that goes in your driveway. None
Right.
of that you're asking yourself when you're going to the big box store to buy it.
Yeah.
You're just using it on Saturday
Yeah.
and getting mad if it doesn't get rid of the weed
The
by the
Roundup.
next day, and then
Yeah.
you spray it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's the,
Right.
if more works, if some works, then more is better, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So all of that to say that, there is a lot of science and regulation that is around farmers' use of chemicals and crop inputs in agriculture.
Yeah.
And all of it is regulated. And farmers wouldn't use any of it if they didn't have to manage situations.
Yeah.
And those situations often are those that we want to avoid so that we can actually harvest a crop, right? There are situations that we can't spray our way out of, right? Mother Nature, when she decides to put frost during spring bloom, we can't necessarily spray our way out
Right,
of that. We can
right.
try to reduce some of the pressures, but it's really expensive as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. Oh, well, there's so much
It's
I
a
want to talk
very
about with
complicated
plants, but
topic.
yeah.
And I'm not a gardener, nor,
Well,
my
you grew
husband
up
and
in
I
dairy,
do.
right?
I did. I grew up in a dairy background. My associate's degree is in dairy
Yeah.
science. I wanted to be a dairy nutritionist when I grew up, right? I didn't do that. But
So where did you go off course there?
well, education.
Yeah.
I had one professor at Fresno State that I did not enjoy learning from, and it's like I'm going to have to just change my
That
major.
that's so funny. I used to want to be a print. Well, I wanted to work for Rolling Stones magazine,
of
right, and be
course,
like
yes.
a rock and roll journalist. But I was for sure going to be newspaper and print or
Okay,
magazine.
yes.
And yeah, I had a professor in print journalism that was not good and not inspiring, and a broadcast one that was so
Exactly.
motivating. Teachers can make such a big
They make
difference
a
in our
huge
lives.
difference.
Yeah.
I mean, agriculture teachers in high school through FFA and that program, they're why I went the direction that I ended
Yeah.
up going. And my degree's in agricultural education. And
Yeah.
while I'm not teaching FFA students in a high school, I'm still advocating and educating through the Farm Bureau.
Yeah. Okay. So you grew up though with cows.
I did. I
cattle.
grew up on a dairy. Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up with horses.
Okay.
I have experience with horses, dogs, and cats.
Okay.
But cows to me, they just seem so cute and lovable and wonderful. And I of course, burgers are everything to
Absolutely.
especially to Americans. But I mean, cows are not as dumb as people think.
No,
are
cows
they?
are very
Yeah.
smart. They're very smart. And yeah, I grew up on a dairy, so as opposed to
Right.
beef cows versus dairy cows.
Yeah.
So I grew up on a Holstein dairy. Both of my grandfathers were involved in the dairy business, and subsequently my dad was involved in the dairy industry. So we showed dairy animals in 4-H and in FFA and owned my own, and I had my own small herd. And after high school, I sold them, and that was the money I used to send me to college.
Yeah.
That was how probably my first job, if you want to think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get attached. You don't get attached to all of them. Most of them have numbers and not names.
Right.
In California, at least.
It's kind of like a choice we make.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a choice. It's part of the food, the life cycle, right?
Right.
It's part of how we and it's part of how we nutritionally serve all of ourselves. So.
Totally.
It's just a part of what we do, and I'm grateful that we have access to it right here in California.
So let's talk about, we were talking about lobbyists and messaging and beliefs. Dairy is kind of controversial in itself. So full transparency, I'll tell you this. So I've been a vegetarian my whole life, but I mean, you walked in, I have a leather purse. So I'm not, on some trying to look down at people who use animal products, because I do too, certainly. But I did feel like for me, dairy wasn't a good fit. I felt like I had less allergy symptoms when I stopped eating dairy. But that's my personal experience, right?
It's a choice.
I also remember that the yummiest food I've ever eaten in my life is a good pizza with a great mozzarella cheese,
Absolutely.
right? But there are a lot of people out there messaging either, hey, you need dairy or you're going to get osteoporosis. And then on the other side, oh, dairy's going to kill you and deplete things from your bones and cause inflammation. What do we know? What do you know to be the truth?
I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's also a lot of good information, and people just need to be responsible about the sources of information and where they're getting them from, right? There are plenty of organizations that are doing amazing nutritional research, like the California Milk Advisory Board or the American Dairy Processors Association. They're taking those organizations are taking farmers' dollars. Farmers are investing in research to help sell their product, but also do so in a responsible manner, right? So it's just like, almonds or walnuts, farmers, a portion of what they would get paid has to go to these associations. But these associations are marketing these products throughout the world, but they're also doing a ton of research.
Yeah.
The facts remain about the dairy industry. Milk is good for you. It is high in protein, and it has good fats in it. It's a great recovery drink after a workout. So I always drink milk. My kids love to drink chocolate milk.
Right.
Some people have a glass in their freezer for their cold beer. I have a glass because I will only drink milk out of a glass. I don't know what it is. I won't drink it out of a plastic cup. I prefer it in a glass, and I would prefer that it be chilled out of the freezer.
That's a whole other
That's a whole
topic,
other. But I am not here for plastic. That's not my wheelhouse at all. But yeah, the dairy, there's lots of different dairy, right? There's milk, there's ice cream, there's cheeses, right? Plus then the fact that dairy animals do eventually end up into the meat cycle as well too.
Always? For the most part?
For the most part,
on the larger
absolutely.
operations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, in the dairy industry, a lot of the females are kept because they're the milk producing portion of the dairy. And so they're continued to be kept at the dairy and managed and taken care of because they're producing milk. But
sometimes you hear horror stories about these large scale operations, big factory operations that are they want the dairy cattle to produce a lot of milk, and they'll give them hormones or give them sort of things that could, that's not happening. That's just not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah, just
they're
propaganda.
being fed. If you remember the Happy Cow commercials of our childhood, those are legitimate. You have to keep livestock happy and taken care of if they're going to work. They're employees of our farms and ranches, and so they have to be taken care of. And no, those are not used. They are, there's a lot of labeling on our. That's the biggest problem we probably have is the amount of labeling that is on the packaging of the food that we buy.
Right.
Is very, very confusing.
Yeah.
Right. Some of my favorite ones are like the ones that say, well, these are non-GMO. Well, that's because none of those crops have ever been genetically modified to begin with. So you can put the label on, but you're kind of really misleading the consumer to think that there are other products of the same kind that are genetically modified, but that crop has never been genetically modified.
Right.
So again, labeling is marketing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people get frustrated, is the amount of marketing that is in our food system.
People don't want to be lied to. People they just want information they need to make good choices for themselves, for their kids.
Yep.
And it seems like no matter which way you look, somebody wants to convince you of something, and someone is saying the exact opposite thing. So I think we all get a little confused.
We do all get a little bit confused, and we do have to find responsible sources of information to trust.
Not ChatGPT.
Well, I don't know.
Sometimes.
I think we're learning. I think we're learning about ChatGPT, and a lot about ChatGPT and the way I use it is I feed it information to help me better understand and evaluate things, right?
Like give it an ingredients list.
Yes.
Like what do these things actually mean?
Yes, exactly. And then ask it where it got its information from. Make it source it, right? So that you know that it's coming from an organization that specializes in that kind of research, as opposed to one that's looking to put farmers out of business, which is often the case.
Interesting.
So, look, the facts remain that the freshest food is where we want to, what we want to feed our families. We talk about purchasing and eating from around the grocery store and not the aisles. Now, look, I shop the aisles. I love me a box of Kraft mac and cheese.
Right.
I'm here to say that I would prefer that to be my side dish with a nice steak.
Yes.
Because that's what I grew up on, right?
Yep.
But I know how to make homemade mac and cheese. But yeah, if we shop around the grocery store, the meat counter, the dairy case, the produce section, that's where the freshest food we're going to find.
Yeah.
And then those freezer aisles to fill in, and the canned food aisles to fill in when those items aren't in season. But also eating in season is really important too.
Okay. I get in habits. Like, I brought up broccoli, like all the same
That's
vegetable.
your thing. My husband loves
every
broccoli.
week, but I'm
He
gonna
eats it all
try
the
to get it a
time,
little more
and
seasonal.
And it's fine.
It's
We'll
fine,
buy broccoli.
but
We can grow it. They grow it in Arizona. They grow it in California.
But broccoli
so,
with squash right now, and then broccoli with cauliflower, whatever else is
exactly.
Okay.
I think that people have to make decisions for their family and for themselves as to what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah.
But we also have to stop judging people for making those decisions.
Yeah.
Right? I've made a decision that I'm going to feed my family with what I can buy locally, what I can buy in California, and what I can buy in Arizona as well, right? Because I know that growing season is longer than what we have in California.
Right.
I'm going to try and avoid buying grapes in the wintertime because I know they're coming from Chile.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just need grapes to finish out that fruit plate that you said you were going to make for the class at school for the Christmas party, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you wash them and hope and know that they're probably not going to be as sweet, but they're probably not going to notice it.
Yep.
Number one, food safety.
Yeah.
If people took more time and energy around food safety, we'd have far less problems. Wash the produce that comes. Right? Don't use the same cutting board for chicken and for your broccoli.
Right.
I mean, common sense things. Hot water and soap. These are the things that we need to be using. Washing our hands and teaching our kids to cook, I think, is very important as well. I don't think we spend enough time with our kids in the kitchen, and we're setting them up for failure because they're going to rely on somebody else to make food for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I love cooking.
Yeah. It's fun to do. I know it can be aggravating. I know I can be aggravated because, I know how I have my things in the kitchen and then my kid comes in and doesn't do them that way. But I'm super proud of my boys. I have two boys. They're 13 and 15. And both of them know their way around the kitchen. My 13-year-old loves to cook, and he can make dinner for us if we're not home.
Right.
So.
That's so great. I love that.
My husband loves to cook as well.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time together as a family in the kitchen. So that's really great for our family.
Yeah, I love that. My 15-year-old loves baking and
that's
that sort
wonderful.
of thing. Yeah, which is super cool. And then, my husband is totally willing to fix something in the backyard while I make dinner.
That's great.
Which is also helpful.
Absolutely. One less pan you have to wash.
I know.
I'm a big fan of the grill. We use the grill year round.
Yeah.
Even if it's raining, it's undercover.
Yeah.
So between the grill and the smoker,
Right.
we're always using that year round. So.
Okay, so we talked a lot about food, we've talked a lot about produce. Getting onto the topic of animals, is the Farm Bureau ever consulted or involved in any way in these conversations about the wolves?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And especially here in Northern California. Myself, not specifically, because we have other people in the area who are experts in that space.
Right.
So they're definitely involved. But the wolf conversation is very important to Butte County. We've actually, well, while I have not seen them, there have been sightings of wolves that have been in Butte County.
Really?
Yes.
Can you tell
absolutely.
me like what general areas?
I'm not sure.
Like
There's
foothills?
a map. It's a foothill area. Yeah. They're
Yeah.
not going to hang out in Chico
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Bidwell Park. You know,
Right.
that's not, there's
Right.
not. We've got enough wildlife down here, right?
Right.
And those are because of where people have ended up going, right? And also because of the fire and how much vegetation that we've lost
Right.
all surrounding where everybody lives here in
Yeah.
our area, right? So much of the forested area has been decimated over the last almost 10 years now for the number of fires that has taken place.
Right.
So if you can imagine that those aren't great places for us to be, they're also not great places for animals and
Yeah.
to be in wildlife. And so they're looking for places where they want to live and
Right.
exist. And sometimes those get a little too close to us.
I think it's crazy how it's become this whole moral thing of like, oh, well, you don't like wolves, or what about the cow's life? Like, even if
livestock,
you don't
yeah.
think about the farmer's money or the rancher's money
For
being
sure.
lost, like the poor little calf that just got ripped to shreds, but also it's just,
On video.
It's
Oh my
just
gosh,
it's
it's
one
so
of those
traumatic.
issues where I don't really see an answer or a solution. A lot of people talk about the Endangered Species Act, like if maybe ranchers could just protect on their own property.
When are we going to add the farmer to the Endangered Species Act? It's like they continue to seem to be threatened all of the time,
Yeah.
but nobody wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the state of California did a really great job introducing wolves back to California, but they put them in a place where they're untouchable. And so now we've got all of these wolves around here, and they're hungry.
You're going to have to get me up to speed, because I remember this all started with Yellowstone, right? It started with the reintroduction in Yellowstone, and then they started spreading
yes.
out. I didn't know
Our
that
herd came from Oregon.
Oh, I didn't know California did it intentionally.
Oh, well, they let them in.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So we didn't have them.
Yeah.
They were gone.
Yeah.
And so, but then the pack from Oregon came in, and then
I remember that, and then
like you
we
and me,
decided
they like to be in
just
California
watch
too.
and
Yeah.
observe and color and track.
Exactly. And
it.
so now they continue to reproduce,
Yeah.
and now there's a lot of them. And I mean, you have livestock in areas so that you can manage them. I mean, we're still talking about wide open, expansive areas, but these are areas that wolves can access. So why are they going to go search for food when they're all kept together in an area? I mean, it's like super easy for them. So yeah, it's become unfortunate that farmers have had to basically watch. But because of stakeholders, because of people with Farm Bureau, because of people with UC Cooperative Extension, because ranchers, because federal officials have all been at the table for months now and have seen the negative impacts of wolves in our livestock in Northern California specifically, that they are making changes. They're relocating some of these different families of wolves, and they've taken some of them out, some of the most aggressive and most
the ones that
deadly.
were specifically training their puppies to go after cattle.
Absolutely. That's the way I understand it, just as well as you understand
I had heard
that,
about
so.
that recently.
Yeah.
What is if you were to be consulted by state and federal government about what does Colleen think the solution, best path forward with the wolf situation could be, what would you tell them?
Putting me on the spot there.
It's tough, right? I don't have an answer.
Yeah, no, I think that we have to be worried about people.
Yeah.
And that we're worried about the wolves, and we're worried about the cattle, but we're worried about the wolves more than we are about the cattle, right? And the cattle are an economic part of our economy in the state of California, right? So should there be some priority there over the wolves? I think so, right? So, you have the ability to go buy Roundup to take out the weeds that are impacting your tomato plants in your backyard. but the cattle rancher doesn't have any tools to take out the wolf that's eating his calf that's supposed to be sold so that he can make a living.
And there's a difference between saying, okay, we're going to have a wolf hunting season
Absolutely.
versus saying, okay, a rancher could protect its own cattle.
I mean, we fish, right?
Yeah.
And fish is a way to sustain our bodies, right? We still have deer hunting, thank goodness. You know, unfortunately, the state of California has really taken away a lot of those management tools in forested areas. Because they think that they are negative to maintaining those forested areas. Nothing is more negative to forested areas than fire.
Yeah.
And because this state has been irresponsible with managing our forests, we ended up with the fires that we did. And now we have the repercussions of that, which is wildlife looking for space to just exist. And we can't all exist in the space where all the people are because we just don't all get along.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a dilemma.
It is very much a dilemma, but I am appreciative and grateful that regulators at the state level and at the federal level are working with those in agriculture as well as those in the environment that are defending the wolves and understand the science and biology of wolves, but understand the science and biology of livestock, and let's all work together.
Yeah. Okay. We have a little bit of time to talk about the weather, right? I love California for the weather.
Yes, most of the time.
We're all complaining about the Thule fog this week and the fact that it's been cold, right? Cold being 40s. I lived in West Virginia for a year.
40 is
40
not cold.
Is not cold.
Yes.
Yeah, it's brisk.
It is.
But in terms of our crops and our cattle and agriculture in general, is the Thule fog, I mean, does that impact anything?
It is not having a negative impact on agriculture right now. It's actually having a positive impact. Crops like our tree crops, our fruit crops, they need chilling hours, and this is when they get them, is during the winter. Those chilling hours basically put all of those trees into hibernation, so they go to sleep. And during that time, then they're taking in as much energy as possible to be able to produce next year's crop.
Oh, okay.
So these chilling hours, these are temperatures. Chilling hours are temperatures below 40 degrees, and trees need hundreds of them, and they have to get them from November to February, basically. Because February is when spring starts around here, and when almond trees start popping, and so we have a limited amount of time. So this month right now of late November and December, where we've seen this Thule fog, has actually been beneficial.
Okay.
It'll also hopefully be beneficial because it's moisture, and moisture is essentially is irrigation for any farmer. And this way, hopefully we don't have to turn sprinklers on in January because we will have received this additional moisture in December.
Right.
And it's that mist that you're seeing that's going into the ground, and it's going into the root system. And so it's important for our aquifer, and because it's going to be in that topsoil of those trees, hopefully we won't have to turn on irrigation and pull water from the aquifer in January because we will have had this additional moisture in December.
Yeah, okay.
So it's all good.
Yeah. California, it's funny, we go through years where we have more severe drought and then we have really wet, rainy seasons. And a lot of times people, when we're in a drought year, will say climate change. It's climate change. It's getting worse and worse. Is California historically just drought prone, or do you believe we're seeing severe climate change?
No, there's plenty of, it's climate change, right? Call it what you want. You can call it climate change. You can call it Mother Nature. It's always been here, however you are going to tag it. But California does historically have these drought periods. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but they are going to exist. And so we manage them the best that we can. With being able to, produce crops, and that we can track how much water we're putting on them. A lot of the farms and ranches around here have tools, usually electronic, that exist in their irrigation systems that tell them exactly how much water is going into their fields, and they know when to turn it off because they know exactly how much water that tree needs. That is science and technology at its finest, helping farmers and ranchers reduce the amount of water that they're using and still be able to produce a crop that they can sell to feed everybody.
Okay. So when we're in a drought period and, you start hearing about these regulations like take 5-minute showers and I mean, are we saving water
No.
for anything or just for people in Southern California?
I don't even know if you're saving water for people in Southern California. Yeah, we need to be responsible, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I turn the faucet off when I brush my teeth.
I had this thought about it, like the golden lawn theory, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if I'm watering my lawn and then it's going back into the ground, then isn't it going into our
It is.
groundwater?
But
So
let
it's
me
not
tell you
wasting
this.
it, is it?
Think about how much better it is in the summertime to walk on your lawn than it is to walk on concrete.
Yeah.
Right? It's a cooling effect that
Right.
lawn causes. I really believe that we have done an injustice to our country and to our state, especially by telling people to pull their lawns out.
Yeah.
Because you are now creating a space that's being pounded on by the sun.
Yeah, the dry skiing.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So with a little bit of water and irrigation, that a lot of it is stored in the ground.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's really great about the soil that many of us have around here. And you can go online. I think it's the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They have a soil survey. You can go put your address in, and it'll tell you what kind of soil you have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. You just put in your
Ooh, I
address,
love
it tells
that.
you what it is.
Yeah.
Farmers use it all the time when they're buying property and
Right.
to know what kind of soil they have. Is it number one soil? And if you have number one soil, start growing a garden in your
Okay.
backyard. You've great soil back there.
Yeah.
You can do it with number two as well. We have some number two. That's what we grow our walnuts
What's
on.
number 3?
Probably not going to be as
Okay.
bountiful as maybe
Yeah.
some. But anyway,
Yeah.
you have that
Yeah.
ability here, right? But that type of soil, it holds the water too, right? Especially if you have a clay type soil. Think of that really muddy, sticky soil when it gets wet. That's clay type soil.
Yeah.
That's holding the water. That's the soil that rice grows in.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Exactly. So you can say that, well, irrigating is wasteful and irresponsible. No, you're actually, like you said, that water is going back into the aquifer
Right.
eventually, but it's also preserving that green landscape space that is cooling cooling the globe as opposed to heating it up.
So who do you think is putting out the messaging that we need to drastically reduce water use? Like, who would benefit from that?
I don't know. I probably shouldn't point fingers and,
Yeah.
and blame people. So, but consumers use the least amount of water of everybody. The environment uses more water than anything else. So that's the rivers, the streams, and the fish. They use more water than farmers do.
Yeah.
So it's the environment, and then it's agriculture. And remember, agriculture is to sustain
Right.
the people, and then the people.
Then it's us.
So, yeah, I think it's, we probably should have, and we're all doing these things already. We already know, right? We have whatever those things are on the end of hoses that I can't remember the name of.
the nozzle?
The nozzle,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you. So we
yeah.
have nozzles because we're not letting water run out, right?
Right.
And we have timers on our sprinklers, so
Yeah.
it's not puddling up. We're doing all of the responsible
Right.
things to manage water.
Yeah.
We also pay a water bill. And if you have endless amounts of money and want to pay your water bill, then turn your water on. That's your prerogative.
Yeah, it gets more expensive during
It
certain
does.
times. Yeah.
It's just like farmers with the crop inputs. They have to pay for the crop inputs.
Yeah.
So they're just not going to put them on just because maybe the tree might get sick. No. If the tree's sick, that's when they're going to treat it.
Right.
They're not going to treat it before it gets sick
Yeah.
because it's expensive.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you're fine with your shower.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave your nozzle on.
I need at least 10 minutes to shave
Yeah,
my legs.
exactly, right? Wash your car in the
Yeah,
front
yeah.
yard, and don't tear your grass out.
Yeah.
What are your kids playing on?
It's funny. It's interesting. I'm glad we're having this conversation because we've been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
Like, should we replace the lawn? The dogs love running on it.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
cool. It
It
feels
is
nice.
cool.
We want to make a good
It
choice for the
reduces the
environment.
temperature
but-
around your house.
Yeah, yeah.
It 100%
Okay.
does. I mean, that's just a fact of life. We have been known in Northern California to it get hot enough that you can take an egg out on blacktop or sidewalk and
Yeah.
you can scramble that. Now
Yeah.
think about those heat waves radiating, around your house.
Right.
Right.
When you put concrete down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Put your grass down.
This may not be Farm Bureau at all.
That's
This
okay.
is my final question for you. But that biomass facility that's
Yeah.
planned for Oroville, is that going to be, do you think, going to be good for us as a community?
I don't think it's going to be bad for us as a
Okay.
community. I think there's a lot of misinformation around biomass and what it does. It's recycling.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's recycling. And there are a lot of amazing technology. We have been talking about biomass for decades. I have been with the Butte County Farm Bureau now for almost 20 years. And every couple years, somebody comes through my door and says, we want to put a biomass facility in Butte County somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's happened so many times now that it's like, okay, I hope
Yeah,
you're
we'll
successful.
hear this pitch too. But this one seems like it's really going to go through.
And again, there is so much technology that exists these days to clean our air when we're recycling. Think about the filters that we have on trucks and cars and all of the things now.
Yeah.
The same can be said for recycling and for biomass as those same technologies exist. Yes, I think that if the powers that be allow it to go through, that it will be beneficial and advantageous for the North State to be able to recycle those different wastes around here. Think about all of the agricultural waste that we have, all of the forest waste that we have. That's a place for it to be recycled and turned into energy that's sellable.
Okay.
We all benefit from that.
Colleen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I learned so much today.
I hope so.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.